Good morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, April 19th. We're excited to be able to bring another webinar to you in our series leading up to the Ohio Business Matchmaker, which will be May 3rd and 4th in Dayton at the at the Wright State Nutter Center. Today, we are looking forward to hearing about doing business with Wright Patterson Air Force Base. So we know that they are one of the largest employers in the Ohio, in our area, our local area, and throughout the state. So we're really excited and looking forward to hearing some wonderful things and how you as a small business can do business with them. Again, this is part of our series. If you are just joining us, this is part of our series for the Ohio Business Matchmaker. And the Ohio Business Matchmaker is a opportunity for small businesses to learn how to do business with government entities, local, state, and federal government. We sometimes also have universities and colleges. So if this is your first time, if you're new to government contracting, this is a great way for you to learn. We will have many agencies, local, state, federal agencies that will be there, and you'll have a chance to pitch your capabilities and tell someone about the products and services you offer. And then you have a chance to interact with agency buyers. So with that said, we do want to go ahead and get started. We're glad that you joined us today. We do have a lot of great information that we're going to be learning. But before that, this wonderful webinar is being brought to you as a result of a partnership. It's a great partnership that we have with several different agencies and organizations, one of which is the Ohio Apex Accelerators. And so we just want to give the Ohio Apex Accelerators a chance to welcome you and give an overview about who they are and what they do. And then there may be something that you hear today, and if you're just getting started, you may want to see, how can I get engaged in doing business with Wright Pat or other agencies to get prepared for the matchmaker? So with that, we do have Mr. Joey Scott, who is the statewide director for the Ohio Apex Accelerators. So I'm going to turn it over to Joey and allow him to introduce their organization. Joey?
Thank you, Shonda. So good morning, everyone. Like Shonda said, I'm Joey Scott. I'm the statewide director for our Ohio Apex Accelerator program. You may know us by a former name, which was the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, or PTAC. So we have new leadership within the Department of Defense, and with that comes a new name. But most importantly, we have the same great mission, which is to help all of you with all things government contracting. So whether you are a new business to the government market or even a seasoned veteran, we are here to assist you every step of the way. Like I said, from helping you with some early processes such as the SAM registration or State of Ohio registration, helping you consider small business certifications, helping you develop a capability statement, which is a great one-page marketing tool, especially when you're going to a matchmaker like the Ohio Business Matchmaker in May. To more advanced things as well, such as helping you find those contract opportunities, helping you review the solicitation, and even review your proposal. We can't write anything for you, but we can help you make sure that you are submitting a responsive and responsible proposal. And then even on the post-award side of things, helping you understand contract clauses and requirements such as cybersecurity, or even helping walk you through the invoicing portals for Department of Defense contracts, and a bunch of other things. So you're not here to hear about me, though. You are here to hear from our great guest speaker here. So I'm going to turn it back to Shonda so we can get underway.
Great. Thank you so much, Joey. In addition to the Apex Accelerators, this webinar series and putting together the Ohio Business Matchmaker, we have a host of great, wonderful partners. In addition to Apex Accelerators, we have the Minority Business Assistance Centers. They can also assist you. They're a technical organization to assist you also with your small business needs. We also have the Ohio Department of Development, the SBDC, Small Business Development Center. So we have a host of partners that we are able to work with to put on such a great series, as well as putting together the matchmaker. With that, we will go ahead and transition to our today's webinar, Doing Business with Wright Patterson Air Force Base. And before I introduce our speaker, just a couple of housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded. So if you can't stay on the entire time, we will record it. And then we will also post the link on the Ohio Business Matchmaker website, as well as the Apex Accelerators, the Ohio University Apex Accelerators website. They have a resource page. We will post the link for the recording as well as the slides. So it may take about a week for the presentation to be, the recording to be finalized, but it will be posted in both areas. Also, as we are going along and the presenter is sharing his information, if you do have questions, we encourage you to put those in the chat, and then I will find a good opportunity, and then I'll share those and pose those to the presenter. Without further ado, I do want to introduce today's presenter, Mr. Jeff Malott, who is the Director of Small Business Programs for Air Force Material Command at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Jeff is very passionate about working with small businesses, and I've had an opportunity to work with him for a couple of years. So get ready to learn a lot of information, get your pad and pencil ready, and I will turn it over to Jeff. Jeff, you can take it from here.
Okay. Thank you, Shonda and Joey. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be with all of you today and share about Air Force Materiel Command. And just a warning, heads up, is I'm going to really address Air Force Materiel Command across the spectrum of what we do, although we're headquartered here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base outside Dayton, Ohio. And so is two of our centers. We really operate globally, but we have installations and centers across the country, across the United States. And so I'll be addressing those as well, because our opportunities, are really, can be, depending on your market sector, right? And where that is being bought within the command. There's opportunities for you to engage, let's say at Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California, as well as here, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So, I will go through that. I'll share a lot of data with you on what we buy and the magnitude of what we buy, just to give you an idea. There are a lot of opportunities just given by the size of our portfolio. And then also kind of get to the practical, right, of how you can make connections. And I'm going to be sharing a handy dandy pamphlet that we've put together that Shonda's going to post as well after this to share with all of you. Gives you points of contact really here at Wright-Pat and across our other centers. So we'll setting the stage, and many of our small business professionals within specifically here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base will be attending the matchmaker and be available to talk to you. So this will be a great foundation for you to understand what the command is and what the centers are, and then you can take it from there and learn, how to make the connection. I'll be giving those, and also when you attend the matchmaker, we'll have folks there for you to talk to. So anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen to be able to go through charts. And please put your questions in the chat, and Shonda will address those with me, and we'll get your questions answered. Okay, so can you see? You can see my screen now, correct?
Yes, but it's not in full presentation mode.
It's not in the presentation mode, and I remember now how to do that. So it should now be in presentation mode, correct?
It is.
Good.
Great.
Okay. So again, practically titled the brief or the presentation is How to Do Business with Air Force Materiel Command. And on this very first intro chart, I want to point something out to all of you that, and notice how we spell material. We spell it with an E. So materiel, and what is that? Well, that's military material. And material from an Air Force perspective is what? It's airplanes, it's propulsion systems, it's associated weapon systems, the sustainment of those systems and airframes. I'm giving you very generalized, but that's what material means. And so you can understand then what we do, and that is we really, we acquire those platforms and associated weapon systems, taking that really from the initial stages of the idea all the way through the acquisition and sustainment of those platforms, and also the associated installation support for those platforms to be able to operate and support the mission. So that's a very high level overview, but kind of gives you an idea of the scope of what Air Force Materiel Command is. So I'm going to go to the next chart. And so what is our mission and vision of the command? Again, it's really simple, straightforward, and makes a lot of sense. So what our mission is powering the world's greatest Air Force. We develop, deliver, support, and sustain war-winning capabilities. And our vision is one Air Force Materiel Command, integrated, collaborative, innovative, trusted, and empowered, indispensable to our nation and disruptive to our adversaries. And I point this out because you may be thinking, well, why is the vision about one AFMC integrated? Well, when I go to the next chart here, you'll see, and again, I've tried to present this in a very simplistic way for all of you, is that the command is headquartered, as I said, here at Wright Patterson Air Force Base outside of Dayton. But we have 6 centers that are located across the country. And this whole organization that I'm just showing here, very high level, is composed of 90,000 employees. 80,000 of those are civilians. So we're predominantly a civilian command. And we manage a collectively an acquisition budget of probably a portfolio of $60 billion a year. We represent over 70% of the Air Force acquisition budget. So as I said, remember how I defined material is you can only imagine we're buying all of the aircraft and those and associated weapon systems to support those platforms. And, those are very large programs. For instance, I'm sure many of you are aware of the new bomber, the B-21, the new tanker, the KC-46, but also all of our fighter aircraft or advanced aircraft that are out there, the F-22, for instance, the F-15, as well as all of our drones, our ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft. Okay, so those are significant programs and significant expenditures executed by Air Force Materiel Command. Now, as I said, we're composed of 6 centers. So if you think of it in a commercial sense or a corporate world, you have the corporate headquarters and then you have divisions, right? And that's how we are constructed. We have our headquarters here, but we have 6 centers that execute their purpose-built centers, as our commander says. And we have, I'm going to go through them, not as they're listed on this chart. So I'm going to start kind of like I'm going to present them in the way that idea to production, testing, sustainment, and support. So I'm going to first start with Air Force Research Laboratory, third one from the bottom. They are also headquartered at Wright Patterson Air Force Base. So Air Force Research Laboratory takes that basic idea, right, to prototype for all of our technologies. And what you need to remember about AFRL is there are a couple things really. Is there one lab, two services? What does that mean? Well, they not only support the Air Force, but also the U.S. Space Force. And, simplify that for you as the Marines are to the Navy, the Space Force is to the Air Force. So when you hear the term like Department of the Air Force or DAF, that it constitutes both Air Force and Space Force. So when you hear the term DAF, Department of the Air Force includes both services. When you hear Air Force, we're really just addressing the Air Force, and I shouldn't say just, but the Air Force, we're addressing the Air Force, and then U.S. Space Force or USSF is the Space Force. So another reminder about AFRL, if any of you are in the technology sectors, then you've probably or may have heard of AFWorks, and they are embedded within AFRL. And AFWorks manages our Small Business Innovative Research Program, SIBRS, and SITR program. And so, and again, they have really just transformed that program into really something that is pursuing technologies and dual use technologies that have both DoD and commercial applicability, and transitioning those as quickly as we can to the mission. So that's Air Force Research Laboratory, and they have locations and labs across the country. There's a location in Hawaii, Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, Rome, New York, as well as others, right? So across the country, there's Air Force Research Laboratories and locations. The next center I'm going to address is Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. That's the second one down. And they're also headquartered here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And they have operating locations at Hanscom Air Force in Massachusetts, that's outside of Boston, and also at Eglin Air Force Base in the Panhandle of Florida. That's two of their locations, the major locations that you may be aware of or have heard of. And what does AFL-CMC do? Well, what they do is they acquire those platforms I talked about. So when you're, and we do that within what we call Program Executive Officer portfolio or PEO portfolios. And those are portfolios constructed around a mission set or a platform set. So for instance, we have a PEO for bombers. And so our B-52 program, which is, quite a age platform, but still going strong. Our new B-21, the B-2. We also have a fighter advanced aircraft PEO, so that's where our F-22, right, F-15 programs are located. We also have a PEO for ISR SOF, as I said, Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance, and SOF is Special Operation Forces. That's a lot of where our drones reside, if you've heard of Predator. And so these PEOs reside within AFL-CMC, and they acquire the platforms and sustain those. As you know, many of these platforms are very sophisticated and require contractors, it's mostly the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturer, to help us sustain these very sophisticated platforms. And so that is what AFL-CMC executes, right? And that's those platforms, the modification of those platforms as they're in the inventory. Also, for instance, at Eglin is a lot of the armament is where for instance, what armament it is, right? You could go into explosives and bombs in a very simplistic term. Hanscom is really leading edge on technology for information, digital, etc. So, and communications, I should say, is there on Hanscom. So that's Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. And as I mentioned earlier, when AFMC executes the majority of the Air Force acquisition budget, AFLCMC does that within AFMC. They execute the majority of what we execute within AFMC, just given by what they are buying, right? Those platforms are again, is considerable in expense. So the next center I'm going to address is Air Force Test Center, and that's the very last one listed. And the reason I do that is because before a platform or a system can enter the inventory, it has to be tested, right? And so that's what we do at the test center. They're headquartered at Edwards Air Force Base in the desert of Southern California, but there's also a location at Eglin Air Force Base in the Panhandle, Florida. There's a large test range there out into the Gulf. And then we really have the world-class wind tunnel facility at Arnold Air Force Station in Tennessee. So all of the propulsion systems, et cetera, that we use or that we're advancing, our wind tunnel test is conducted at Arnold Air Force Base Station, I should say, in Tennessee. So that's the test center. Then moving on is after a system or platform is within the inventory, it has to be sustained. And so the Air Force Sustainment Center, the second from the bottom, does that. Now, that they're headquartered at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City, but they have two major operating locations at Hill Air Force Base outside of Ogden, Utah, and Robbins Air Force Base just south of Atlanta, Georgia. Now, what I'm going to tell you what the Sustainment Center does at a very high level is they operate our depots. So aircraft have to go through depot, and commercial aircraft as well. And when you take a flight on a commercial airline, those aircraft have a rigorous depot process as well, where they go through and they're checked for any, structural concerns, any repairs, updates are made. And that's what we do, very rigorous for military aircraft. And then also what I was going to add there, when I mentioned the B-52 earlier, right? You may have heard, the B-52 has flown for 50 more and it may fly for another 50, right? We can do that because of our depots, right? Because that is so rigorous and they do such a, really a fantastic job of keeping these aircraft in top operational condition. And so then the other aspect of what the Sustainment Center does is manage our supply chain. So you can only imagine what the Air Force supply chain looks like, right? To supply and maintain these aircraft really operating, globally. So that's Air Force Sustainment Center. Then moving on, we have Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center, and it's the fourth from the bottom there. And they're headquartered at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. And they do exactly what's in their titles. They manage our nuclear enterprise. And then finally, the last center I'm going to address, the sixth center, is Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center. It's the first one listed. And they are headquartered at Joint Base San Antonio in Texas. And they do, again, all those centers do what's in their title. And so installation and mission support, and I'm going to make this super easy, is it's that supporting and maintaining those installations across the Air Force, meaning globally. And so that could be, runways, our infrastructure, for instance, our buildings, our HVAC, our roads, all that installation and mission support to, really ensure that the mission happens, right? And to make sure that, the infrastructure is there and in place to allow the mission to take place. And so they do that. They have centers embedded within AFIMSC. One that I always point out is Air Force Civil Engineering Center. It's also located at headquartered down in San Antonio, and AFCEC manages the infrastructure across the Air Force as part of AFIMSC. So with just that slide there, you will see, it gives you an idea of just the magnitude, the scope of Air Force Materiel Command, and the small business opportunities really cross all the industry sectors supporting those various missions. So now I'm going to move on to the next chart. Was there any questions, Shonda, on the centers that you think are appropriate to share now?
No, we don't have any questions so far.
Okay, so I'm moving on. I think I went the wrong way. Okay, so I'm just going to now go into who I am in my office. So again, I'm Jeff Malott. I'm the Director of Small Business Programs here at headquarters, Air Force Materiel Command. Okay, and I have a very small office. I have a data analyst and two SB professionals and an office admin. And what is our job, right? We champion small business solutions for the warfighter, but again, recognizing that we are at headquarters. So what our office does is predominantly we call it organized training equipment. We're out there supporting our center small business offices and our centers and executing the small business mission across the command. And so we have a strategic focus, I would say an enterprise-wide focus, as well as, but I'm going to say this, I always say, don't hesitate to reach out to us. So, because we're very good at then helping you, if you question maybe where you fit within the command, we can help you pinpoint where you should make contact within what center you should be targeting or centers you should be targeting. So there's our office line and our office email. Now, Chelsea there listed last, she keeps cognizance of that workflow email. So if you do email it, she makes sure you're connected. So don't worry about it being a workflow and think it's going to go into the abyss. And then also, if you don't hear back, always just call or email again, because we do get a lot of contacts. So I'm going to go to our next chart. And I'm going the wrong way again. So I'm just going to give you some of the things of what we do, really, so you can have an idea of what we do from a headquarters perspective for the small business program, right? So what do we do? Well, we establish what we call senior leader performance expectations or goals. I don't know if many small businesses know this, but the DoD, Department of Defense, requires all of our senior leaders. These are folks that we, our highest level leaders, our senior executive service leaders, to have in their performance plan small business as one of their performance elements, meaning what are they doing to advance small business, to build the industrial base. And so what we do in my office, we establish the goals across the centers and for the program executive officer, and we really support that being done across the Air Force. So and again, as you may realize at this point, the Small Business Administration, okay, where Shonda works, right, is they establish goals for all the federal agencies, right? Then once they, establish that for the DoD every year, then what the DoD does is then establish goals for each of the services. And so then once the service goals are established, the service then establishes goals for the commands. And then what we do here at AFMC as one of the major commands is establish goals for all of our organizations. So those centers and PEOs. And so that's done. We have a very rigorous process where we do that based on a five-year spend history and projected spend analysis. And we, our goal is to establish challenging yet achievable goals across small business and all the socioeconomic categories. We monitor this monthly, really all the time, but we monitor it and we do monthly reporting to all the leaders across the command. And we also use the data that we collect, and we collect it across all the federal platforms where contract award data is reported to reduce barriers to entry. We do analysis of where we're seeing small business possibly decline in certain industry sectors. We do industrial base analysis as an examine the SB trends. So,
Jeff, we do have a couple of questions that have come
Okay.
in.
okay.
Okay. First one is from Karen, who wants more information, and I don't know if you're going to cover this, on the Air Force's First Look program.
Well,
And
I don't have a chart on that, but what's the question?
she wanted to know what division that First Look program was a part of, and the primary point of contact for supporting medical supplies and equipment for Wright Patterson Air Force Base.
Okay, so on First Look, there isn't an office called First Look, but First Look is really a method. I'm going to say it's a platform for our acquisition folks to buy, right? So they're using that to identify local small businesses to acquire supplies and or services. And so basically, they do that predominantly through our government purchase card program. And so for medical, what I would suggest you do is I've given you the our email address, and I'm going to share the pamphlet. You can email us, and we can. I'm assuming, in this case, I'd want to first verify that you've been able that you are registered in First Look and on one of the platforms available to be so that we can buy from you. And then we would look at what GPC holders are potentially buying that type of supplies, or our acquisition personnel at the installation level here at Wright Pat that may also be buying medical supplies. Medical gets kind of interesting because as you may or may not know, is that's now managed at the DoD level. There is what's called the Defense Health Agency that was driven really by a congressional direction for DoD. So to manage the medical treatment centers at a DoD level. And so our medical treatment facility here at Wright Pat is on the base, obviously, and this is true for all the bases, but they are managed out of the Defense Health Agency. So it really depends where this type of what you're selling, that would be where that is acquired. So you have a couple things. There's also First Look, if it's being bought locally, and then if it's being bought enterprise-wide by the DoD, the Defense Health Agency, then we can connect you to Defense Health. So anyway, and any other question in that regard?
Yes, we do have a couple more. And that participant, Karen, was registered in that First Look, I think, platform.
Okay. Good.
And Barbara, as far as a phone number, if you want to type in specifically what phone number you were looking for, Barbara Mason, put that in the chat. I know Jeff is going to share some more contact information for different divisions and different individuals, but if you want to type that in. Justine Blank wants to know, will Air Force Material Command be represented at the Ohio Business Matchmaker in May?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Who will be there is Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, Air Force Research Laboratory, and Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center. They will all have representation there, as they all have representation here at Wright Pat.
Awesome. Two great things about Wright Patterson Wright State Medical Center is in the back. There's really the back door of Wright Patterson. It's right there. And usually Wright Pat has great representation. They typically have like a whole row. So as Joe said, as Jeff said, there will be representation from the different centers. So they each year they do have a great turnout from their buyers. Does Wright Patterson use the e-market platform? Barbara Mason wants to know.
Which e-market platform?
Okay, Barbara, if you want to type that in. And then Lindsay, do you have specific set aside projects for woman-owned businesses, or is there a goal for spending with them 5% as an example?
Yes. You know what? That's a great question on WSB, because Shonda, Joey, and I are all working together in doing some specific outreach this year and the next on women-owned, looking at that closely in all of the socioeconomic categories. I'm going to talk here a little bit about our women-owned spend, and there's a couple things when it comes to it, and I'm going to broaden this answer to all the socioeconomic categories, which is SDB, HubZone, service disabled, veteran-owned, small business. Again, these opportunities, of course, will be published, right? And I can't, basically can't stress enough that you need to be on, SAM, and your searches are refined, and the Apex accelerators can really help you with that, because some of that, in my experience, has been, you can get overwhelmed with notifications from SAM on things that probably you're really not going to be a player in, or really want to be, right? It just becomes overwhelming. And so being able to refine that search so that you can not get as much, but maybe things that are much more applicable to what you're doing. The other thing too is, as I'm going to share here, and is our pamphlet, as you start engaging with and really this is true everywhere for Air Force Material Command, Air Force, or I would think it's DoD in general, is engaging at the locations, at the installations, and getting to know the small business folks, and sharing what you do, and also getting engaged in any outreach events, any industry days that occur. Because since we're getting to the real practical up front, I'm just going to get there too, and that is this: it just like if you were trying to break into a very large commercial corporation, it's going to take multiple knocking and marketing and building those relationships. Unfortunately, it's not that you knock and we give you a contract. That isn't how it works. Sometimes it does. Sometimes there's just something that clicks, right? I can't, hopefully you're the unicorn, you get it, but in most of the times it's going to take, depending on the sector you're in, is working on making those contacts, getting involved, meeting people, getting your, doing your marketing, using your capability statement, getting that out there, and keeping on that, just not giving up after the first try. This is what it takes, and I think it takes that no matter if you're DoD or commercial, right? Entering those markets, that's what it takes. And then sometimes it takes a 3 years, whatever, 1 year, 2 years, and then you get in, you start building that past performance. The other thing I'm going to say here, since we're getting to brass tacks early, is this: always remember that many times your first entry may be as a subcontractor or a vendor to one of our to a prime, could be either another small or a large business. And so you have to market to them as well. So you look at your industry sector and also who's operating in that at a larger level that you could probably support, maybe either providing some kind of niche capability or supporting them, because when it comes to our other than small businesses, we'll call them the large businesses. We have subcontracting plan requirements for all of them, where they have to have plans to subcontract with the socioeconomic categories. Those reports obviously are they are reviewed and approved and coordinated with the SBA. SBA is the one that really houses those and keeps track of the small business subcontracting plans. So you have multiple entries. You have both as a prime after getting those direct awards, but also as a vendor subcontract. So you have to think of both of those tracks. Any other question?
We do. I'll go ahead and pose the last few, and then we'll allow you to continue. I think we may have about 3.
Okay.
Stephen Grundy wants to know, how does one address getting the opportunity to produce the patches for each of the centers? When you say patches, Stephen, are you referring to the logos for the uniforms, the patches for the uniforms? Stephen, is that what you are asking?
That's military clothing.
Yes, that's what he wants to know.
That's a good one. I don't know how that's bought. That would be something you'd have to email us, and that is I am not sure, because military clothing is something, of course, that's very much, as you can only imagine, I'm going to use the word regulated, but it is not regulated in the sense there's laws, et cetera, on it. But it's of course, with the military, that has to be very standardized and the same, right? And so that would be something on you would need to get plugged into how we buy military clothing, and that's something I just have not been faced with. So that would be something of a little bit of a research project on my part.
Okay. Now, would it be too much if you could research that quickly or find out and then add it to your slides?
No, that would be something he needs to email the office on.
Okay.
I hate to say that, but that's just something I would need to get. I would need to, number one, look at the NAICS code, then do some searching into SAM to find out where that's being bought, because Air Force Material Command may not even be buying it. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
When it comes to uniforms, that's just something a little challenging.
And he would email somebody in your office?
Yeah, the workflow that was on that previous chart. You'll see it, and it's also going to be on that pamphlet.
Okay, he'll bring it up at the end. So I guess that would include the logos and the patches.
Anything.
And I guess the logo. Okay, anything.
Anything uniform related.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying that's just beyond I haven't had that question before, but it's a good one. I just imagine, I know there's a whole military clothing sphere out there.
Okay. All right. So he will put up the points of contact again before the presentation is over. So you will be able to see that, Stephen. And then the next one, Pam, Jeff is going to go over what the different centers purchase as far as products and services. A good overview. We'll be going over that in the next couple slides. Jessica Hatfield, who will we need to reach out to for producing shipping racks for materials?
Okay, so do you mean okay, obviously you mean like if you were going to ship, give me an example of what you would use your racks to ship.
Jessica, if you could type that in the chat, and while she's doing that, after that one and this one, I'm going to hold off on the rest of these,
Okay.
and then we can come back so you can
Okay.
jump in. But going back to Barbara Mason, wanted to know phone number for and I believe you'll show that. Does Wright Patterson Air Force Base use the e-market platform?
Yeah.
Or the NDVSB and AAFES e-marketplace?
Yeah, that's a first look, right? And folks do use those.
Okay.
I am very aware of those. Yes. And so I'm assuming you're on it. Is that correct? I mean, but anyway, yes.
Okay. Yes.
And
Barb
that is
on.
primarily done at the what we call the GPC level, which is the government purchase card, right? It's a credit card. But it's not like a credit card like our personal credit cards, but it's for buying of government supplies. And generally, $25,000 and below. Anyway, okay.
Okay. This will be the last
questions. These are good.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then we'll save the rest. This is the last one. Finishing up Jessica's question she had about who we need to reach out to for producing shipping racks for materials.
Oh, right.
She said any materials, for example, they have a customer now where they make racks for hoods and fenders.
And for shipping those?
Yes.
Okay, so that one I would think, okay, so that's a logistics, right? For us I would consider that within logistics and how we ship things and store things, right? And that it can be the whole gamut, right? Because when you're talking about, let's say, for instance, targeting pods for aircraft, those have very sophisticated containers and shipping, right? All the way to things like you're addressing, like if you're shipping large components that needed for assembly or for some type of movement from a logistics perspective. Number one, I would say, it would either be, I would say, recommend contacting the Air Force Sustainment Center. Okay, and I'll be giving you contacts on that. That's in our pamphlet and at the end of this brief. And then also Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center. Ms. Mary, I talked to you about how they deal with, they address installation support really across the world globally. Now, I will say this, keep in mind, when it comes to shipping, we're either doing it ourselves, right? Or we're hiring it done, right? And so those shipping racks could either be, we're buying them ourselves, right, to ship things, or who we've contracted for to ship for us is doing it. And you understand the nuance there, right? So there's a couple questions there. And I would say, as you do your SAM search, number one, and this applies, my recommendation to anybody on here that has a specific kind of good or product that they are producing and selling, they want to sell to Air Force Material Command, the Air Force, DOD, or any federal agency, is one, work with your Apex accelerator to do a SAM search and find out who's buying what you're selling. Okay, that's so important. because, and it could be, because I'm going to tell you within DOD, and even it's particular, and I know DOD because that's where I work, right? I work for the Air Force. As many times, just because, you know, something that's being used at Wright Pat, and I'll use Wright Pat, it may not being bought at Wright Pat, and may be being bought by someone else for us. So finding out, like using your NAICS codes in getting a SAM search and finding out who's buying what you are selling, and refining that to what organization, right? Because it's in there, it's in the contract action report, in which the data can be pulled in SAM as who's the acquisition organization or contracting organization that bought it. Okay. And you will find then, let's say for shipping racks, you know, maybe the Army's buying a lot of those. I don't know. I'm just saying, to me, that's important for you to have an idea, because I don't want you to get frustrated by contacting us and we say, no, a bit, and you think to yourself, well, I know they're using them and buy, you know, but find out, you know, it's just a good place to start, is my recommendation for anybody selling something. Is you're probably all based here in Ohio or a surrounding state, and but as you can only imagine, when it comes to things like shipping or any of these things, we're a huge enterprise, and many times these things are bought at enterprise level, number one, or are being bought by someone else for us, or at a different location, but they're used at all locations. For instance, when I talked to you earlier about Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center and what they're doing really to support Air Force installations worldwide, right? Much of that is bought at enterprise level. Let's say for, I'll make something up here, you know, for HVAC, let's say. And so you may say, you know, local HVAC, well, that maybe that's being bought regionally. And you need to understand who's buying it, who the contract's been awarded to, so that you can then target that prime for a subcontracting opportunity. So I can, you know, if you contact my office, you know, we can help you kind of think through that, and any of the small business folks can. But I just think a really great place to start is really finding out who's buying what you're selling. It's a basic question. And knowing that really helps you target your marketing efforts. I don't know. Do you agree,
No,
Shonda?
absolutely. And that's with any small business, and doing business with any agency, not just Wright Pat. That is the great place to start, as Jeff said, really working with your Apex accelerators. And they do have the software to be able to get your NAICS codes and then also keywords, and then do searches to see if that agency is purchasing what you're selling. Because you may want to do business with Wright Pat, but maybe they don't buy as much of your product or service, and maybe the Army or the Navy does. So again, that's a great place to start, is to work with your Apex accelerators. With that, Jeff, I think we're going to go ahead. We do have a couple of additional questions, but I'm going to hold those. I'm going to allow you to finish, and then we can circle back to them at a later time, because I don't want to get too bogged down and don't allow you to finish.
And
these are great questions.
Yeah, right. And thank you for the questions. And then Shonda, you know, give me warning on time, okay? And
okay, we have a whole hour. We're just at 10:58. Okay. So we have an hour.
Okay. Folks, apologies. I'm doing the chart flipping, and I know I keep on going backwards instead of forward. And anyway, I'm going to try to go forward. I think I went backwards again. Anyway, hey, this is the chart that I think we've all been waiting for. These are the points of contact for all of our small business directors across those 6 centers. Okay, so AFIMSC, and they have staffs, right, as well. that are supporting them. So if you don't talk to one of them, you'll talk to somebody on their staff. But AFIMSC Installation Mission Support Center, Greg Santiago is our director for Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. Oh, before I go on, AFIMSC, he's down in San Antonio, but he also has a small business operating location here at Wright Pat, just because of what they do, and because Air Force Installation Contracting Center, AFICC, which is part of AFIMSC, is located here at Wright Pat, and they do a lot of the enterprise buying for the entire Air Force. And so his director for small business here at Wright Pat is Dave Boris, and Dave and his team will be at the Matchmaker. Then for Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, we have Luke Schultz, okay? And Luke Schultz is director. He will also, and his team will be at the Matchmaker. We have Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center. Rob Acosta is the director there. AFRL Research Laboratory, Brian McJilton is the director. For Air Force Sustainment Center, it's Ronnie Hobbs. There's his email address. And then AFTC, Air Force Test Center, is Cindy Randall. Of course, there's our HQ email address, and feel free to reach out to us if you like. I can't remember who I should talk to, or tell me where I should, where do I fit in? And so I'm going to go to the next chart. Of course, I went backwards. Anyway, so let's talk about our program, just the magnitude of it. So for an FY22, we had a record small business program. We had 8.7 billion out of 49 billion in eligible spend, or 17.89%. So what does that mean? So we awarded over 8.7 billion to small business in FY22, which is the government fiscal year. So that's 1 October 2021 to 30 September 2022. We're currently in what we call government fiscal year 23, that started on 1 October 22. And when we say 49 billion in eligible spend, that means the spend that's available for small business. And I put a little explanation. There's contracts awards available for small business. Exclusions include acquisitions with statutorily mandated sources and those made on behalf of foreign governments. Because, for instance, we do a lot of what we call foreign military sales for our foreign partners. So that's excluded from the small business program. So our spend is actually higher than, I think it's around 57 billion last year. But what was eligible for small business is 49 billion. What's interesting, that does include things like our bomber. So all the spend that we're spending on the new bomber program and the new tanker program is considered by the SBA, thank you, Shonda, to be eligible for small business. So it of course, small business isn't going to be able to do that, but they may do a really good job if they're given the opportunity. But that kind of constrains our percentage, But when you talk about Air Force Material Command, because of the magnitude of what we do, it's low percentages, but very big dollars. Okay. So we exceeded, we experienced substantial spend in all of our socioeconomic categories. We had the question about WOSB. We had in FY22, we had 1.4 billion in WOSB spend. That only represents a little over 2%. So that's just an example of the magnitude vice the percentage when it comes to Air Force Material Command. It's well over a billion, 1.4 billion for women owned, but it's only 2%. And so I'm going to move on here. This is our goals for FY23, and I'm giving you the Department of Air Force goal and the AFMC goal. So we have an AFMC for FY23, which we're currently in. We have a goal of 15.29%. You'll see there are various goals. Now, I think I had the question, it's a good one, earlier about women-owned and the 5% statutory goal, and you're probably looking at that going, well, that's below. Remember, the statutory goal is at the federal government level, right? And because it doesn't mean that that flows down, because some agencies may have a higher than 5% goal. And because of what we buy, women-owned businesses operating in sectors that we buy from, our goal is less than that, but it's still substantial. And you'll see that also in the others. Look, for instance, in the SDB goal, as many of you are aware, is President Biden issued the executive order, and we've had subsequent OMB memorandums on increasing equity in federal procurement and increasing the number of new entrants, right? And the federal goal for SDB is going to be 15% in FY25. So we're working towards that. And as you see, the DAF has a goal of 10.4% in SDB, and AFMC has 5.83. Again, the reason being just because now we're tracking this all very closely. We are, I would say, very confident right now that we will meet or exceed our SDB goal, both at the AFMC and Air Force level, DAF level. But given what AFMC buys, right? But that 5.83 is a substantial increase. We are increasing it. It's a struggle for us. Last year it was below 5. I think it was 4.2. In FY22. So we are increasing our SDB goal as well as our other socioeconomic goals. You just probably, you're like, oh, those percentages are low, but the dollars are large, and so we watch that very carefully, and we are very much taking on the challenge to increase our SDB spend as well as the other socioeconomic categories. So I'm getting into the NAICS codes, and I'm not going to go into all of this, but this gives you an idea of what the command buys. And I'm going to do this for all the centers. And as you can see there, the number one, and this is at the command, and for small business, these are our NAICS codes, our small business NAICS codes, meaning the top 10 NAICS codes in which small businesses perform. And so you'll see, obviously aircraft manufacturing, that's great, isn't it? They're operating, we have small businesses in the 13.7 billion. Going on down, you'll see that they are the ones that you think probably obvious, given from the command levels. For instance, R&D is the second one. So notice there, the second one from the bottom is facility support services, and the last one is professional, scientific, and technical services. A lot of small businesses operate in our professional services. So now I'm going to go through the NAICS codes for each of the centers. Here is AFIMSC. You'll see it says AFICC on that. That's Air Force Installation Contracting Center that I mentioned earlier. We're just including that so you know that that is included in there, since many folks are aware of AFICC. And you'll see that the SB NAICS are, you start seeing like the second one being facility support, third one being institutional building construction. Obvious, we not only buy a lot of our own construction, but remember, we do a lot of our construction through the Army Corps. So if you're in construction and you're interested in work at Wright, Pat, or any Air Force installation or DoD installation, you need to not only get connected to the installation and the civil engineering group on the installation, but also in the cognizant Army Corps office. And for Wright, Pat, it's Louisville. Then you have going on down, looks like the sixth one down is remediation services. We do a lot. AFIMSC does a lot, and small business is big in the market of remediation. For instance, like, when there's contaminants or testing of soil, air, water, water, soil, etc., for contaminants and the remediation of that. Oil and gas pipeline related structures, family services. So that's the top 10 NAICS there. Now, given you can see that's still substantial dollars, even at the 10th one, and we can go lower for you if you asked for the centers, the top 20, but okay, so I'm going to go on now to Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center. This one, again, I would say if you think you fit within NWC, contact me or Rob Acosta on the points of contact. Okay, so here's Air Force Research Laboratory. I think, basically that's going to be an obvious. It's R&D in the physical engineering and life sciences. And those are the top two. And then you start seeing here, telecommunications, engineering services, custom computer programming, scientific services, etc. Go now to Air Force. I went backwards again. Here's Air Force Sustainment Center. And again, you start seeing more of the aircraft and repair, third one there. Electronic precision equipment repair and maintenance, engineering services, aircraft engine and engine parts manufacturing. I'm going to go now to AFTC. Again, their first one is engineering services, which makes sense given what they do is that test, right? So it requires a lot of engineering expertise to conduct tests. But you can go on down, then it gets into R&D. But of course, look, as you go down, you have facility support services and also plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. Because you can imagine they need that at those test ranges, especially if it's out in the desert, right? So that's out there at Edwards. Okay, so I'm gonna go now into our obligations, just to give you, because this question was asked on our women-owned obligations set-asides across the years. You'll see that is increasing. And in fact, our women-owned do very well without a set-aside. In fact, most of our women-owned spend comes from competition, meaning women-owned businesses do a really good job of winning competition within our spend, because the set-asides is not a substantial part of the spend for women-owned in the past 3 years. We're hoping to see an increase in that, though. So now I'm going to move on to the next chart. Oh, I keep on going backwards. Here is our SDB obligations over the past 3 years. You're going to see our 8A program spend, our other set-asides spend associated with SDB, and then no set-aside. And again, our SDBs are doing well. And I think, really, this is a good metric for the 8A program, right? Because what is the 8A program really doing? It's a business development program to help SDBs get ready to compete, right? And be competitive. And we're finding in our spend that most of our SDB spend is coming from a no set aside. That last row there, no SA means no set aside. So that's a good marker for our SDBs. I'm just showing here SDB obligations by center. Again, a substantial for SDB across all of our centers. And now, again, I'm going to show you here, Nuclear Weapons Center, the third one down, you'll see that's the lowest, right? And it makes sense given what they do. And so that's why I was saying earlier, if you think you're going to operate in the Nuclear Weapons Center, I'd say you contact us, because I really, that's specialized, right? I apologize. I keep on going backwards. Then I'm just going to talk here of I don't know if we've got anybody in the technology sector online, but what's going on with our SIBRs, our small business innovative research, and the STTRs, which is when it's a small business partnering with academia. And this is really across the DAF. I'm showing you here all of the SIBR Phase 2 awards, and you'll note most of them are made by AFMC, 807 of them awarded by AFMC out of 834 across the DAF. Now, why is that? It's because AFWorks, which manages the SIBR program for the DAF, resides within AFRL, and which is a part of Air Force Materiel Command. Down. Okay, here's our SIBR Phase 3s. Now, Phase 3s are super important. Why is that? Well, that is because the Phase 3 takes it it produces it. It takes the technology and actually incorporates it into a program. And we are actually doing very well in SIBR Phase 3s right now. We in FY22, we awarded 316 Air Force wide. Again, a majority within AFMC at 153, and also a majority of the dollars within AFMC at 1.3 billion of Phase 3 SIBRs. And that means a firm has been gone through the Phase 1 and Phase 2 process with SIBR funding, and then a customer, has actually bought that and produced it and incorporated it into their system. So it's a major achievement. It's rare, as you can see, compared between the number of Phase 2 awards to Phase 3 is a drop. And so this is quite an achievement for a small business. This is our Phase 3s within AFMC itself, who's awarding all our PEOs listed there. They're awarding them, as well as all of our centers. As you can see there, again, AFLCMC, just by the nature of what they buy, as I told you, is all of our platforms. They awarded the majority of those SIBR Phase 3s. And this is what we've seen so far this year at the beginning of March. We already have awarded 213 Phase 2, so we're off. And I know that AFWorks is doing another round here shortly. Here's our Phase 3s. Again, you can see the difference. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to take a drink here. So what do one of the other things I want to plug while I've got you is what we do here at HQ AFMC. We have a very robust, what we call Colliders program. And that's where we're sharing information with our small business base on topics that of our interest and are really critical for you if you're going to operate in our market sector. And we do this every year, and we regularly team with the Apex accelerators and SBA in presenting these. And so some of them that are coming up this year are our AFIMSC mission brief and opportunities on wrong date. I apologize, that is not till 2 June. I'll get that updated. 2 June 23. And then or excuse me, I think it's 1 June. Let me look here. I don't know how that got in there. I'm being spontaneous here just to make sure I'm giving good information. Yeah, June 1. And we're calling that Installation of the Future. This next one is called The Threat is Real, Cybersecurity Resources Available to Small Business on 11 May. And that's going to cover, we're going to start that out with a threat brief so you understand what the threat in cyber is. And then we're going to talk about the resources available to you from DoD, Office of Small Business Programs, Air Force Blue Cyber, as well as Apex Accelerator resources available to help you get started with being cyber compliant, to be able to operate in the DoD space. It's super important. The threat is real. Small businesses need to be concerned. We have players on the world stage. They're interested in your intellectual property. So I look at this not only as the DoD be concerned about what we have and ensuring that, it is not released inappropriately, but you should also be concerned about your own intellectual property. Then, oh, I do have the installation. That must have been but the installation of the future is on 1 June. I do have it right. Anyway, apologies. And then we have our Space Force event in July. We haven't settled on a date yet, but we will be publicizing it on the mission, threat, and organization and small business opportunities in Space Force. Then we're going to have another event on foreign ownership, control, or influence. It's called FOCI. Again, related to cyber, and that is understanding what FOCI is and what, if you're going to be operating within DoD, particularly in technology sectors, what you need to understand about foreign engagement in your business and what we're going to be looking for. If you want to be notified of our colliders, contact James Mason Brink at Wright Brothers Institute. They host all of our colliders. They're in downtown Dayton at 444 East 2nd Street. Now, I'm going to tell all of you, we do these hybrid, so you can attend in person or virtually. Okay, so it's really a nationwide audience that attends these because of how we operate really across the country. So, and we do this every year. We had a great program last year. We had events on digital engineering and supply chain risk management. And so again, another great lineup this year. Again, I went backwards. This is another good chart. I like them all, but this one's good for you guys especially, is opportunities. Okay, so what that first one there is all of our expiring contracts, and we publicize that at the Air Force level, and it's there's a searchable Excel spreadsheet, and that'll allow you to see all the contracts that are expiring in the next year or two. And why is that important? Well, typically because once we buy something, we buy it again. And so that'll help you start your marketing and contacts with bases that are buying things that you think you would be interested in selling. And so that's available at that website at the Air Force Small Business. Air Force Civil Engineering Center, they publicize their contract task order list, construction task order list for the coming year at that site. And then there's the CyberSitter program at afworks.com. So if you're interested in pursuing a research project, which has dual use capability, commercialization, as well as military, go to AFWorks and get on their mailing list. They will be announcing different openings, cyber openings, both for phase 1 and phase 2, and other opportunities within the CyberSitter program. So if you're in that space, you need to connect it there. And I'm going to conclude with the contacts again. And then I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And I'm going to show you our pamphlet, and which I've already sent to Shonda, and she's going to be, posting. Hold on. And can you see this, Shonda?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our pamphlet, and we give you here, some basic information about who we are and 6 easy steps of doing business with us. Then we also, those websites that have opportunities, or the expiring contract lists and the construction TO list are on this. Then going to the second page, we give you a brief description of all the centers. And then throughout there, we identify the small business points of contact directors for each of our locations, center locations and operating locations across the country. So for those of you that, so note here, if I go down here where my cursor is, Air Force Research Laboratory at the top there, you see Wright Patterson Air Force Base, the director and the contact. There's also our Wright research site. Sarah Bell is there, plus all their other locations. You have Luke Schultz here at Wright Pat and his staff. Also the other location directors are listed. And then when I mentioned Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center, there's that second one listed there is at Wright Pat is Dave Boris, and there's their contact information. Now, I'm going to say this. All of our small business offices get a lot of emails and contacts. And so there are times, have to admit, something gets lost through the crack. We try very hard not to let it happen. But number one, if you don't hear back in a reasonable time from folks, then contact them again, call, email, or contact my office. Anyway, so I'm going to stop sharing this. That'll be made available for you. And Shonda, we can switch back over to questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Lots of great information, and I love the engagement from our participants. And let me jump back up here because I made note of where I stopped. All right, so the next question, Kevin Busto has a question.
Mm-hmm.
How will CMMC 2 affect your purchasing and purchasing in general for small businesses?
Yeah, that's one that, we're still, that ultimately has not been fully implemented yet. And so, but yes, that will ultimately be a requirement out there for small businesses to comply with. The upcoming event that we're having on May 11th may be something that you're interested in, because we're going to cover all the resources out there available. We have some great resources. I'm going to tell you, Blue Cyber, Kelly Kiernan curates that, hosts that. She's available for one-on-ones. Joey and his team is going to be sharing. If you're in the state of Ohio, wow, all I got to say is you've got a great opportunity here within the state of Ohio to get assistance in compliance. Joey, did you want to add anything on that, or Shonda on CMMC?
I was just going to add that I know there were some, I think with those deadlines with CMMC that the government extended them. Yeah. But I know also that Apex Accelerators have been doing webinars to get to bring awareness to small businesses, and then also share, more of the updates. And so I'm sure as the government reprioritizes the deadlines, that I'm sure wouldn't surprise me if Apex Accelerators had some additional information and would be doing webinars. And Joey probably could speak more to it.
Yeah, I'll just chime in here real quick. I'll keep it brief, but absolutely, as we get more information, we like to keep our clients updated, because CMMC is going to be a major impact to any business looking to sell to pretty much any agency within the Department of Defense. And not to scare folks, but I know that the other agencies out there in the federal world are also very alertly paying attention to how CMMC goes. There may be some consideration for other federal agencies. So don't think that it's going to go away anytime soon. Cybersecurity is very important. But like Jeff alluded to as well, here in Ohio, we do have a pilot program where you can get free up to 15 hours of free consulting. Just connect with your local Apex Accelerator office and they'll get you connected with that program. And so that's up to 15 hours free of consulting to help you get compliant with what's expected to be level 1 under the 2.0 model. And then there's the option, if you're expected to be at level 2, you can get some additional free consulting as well. So again, this is a pilot program. We're hoping, it'll stick around for a lot longer, but take advantage of it while it is here.
Yeah, for sure. And the threat is real, though, as I said earlier. So we do have to take it very seriously, but also balancing that with small business being able to absorb that and make that happen on their end. What's the next question, Shonda?
And I would also add with that, Anthony, as far as explaining what small businesses would need to be CMMC compliant to work with AFMC. I know there were some already previously recorded webinars that we do a government contracting series with then PTAC over the last couple of years. And I know we did several different webinars. And so you could always go to the website. I will post that in there. But again, just stay tuned to the additional updates that will be coming. And I'm sure we'll be hosting webinars to bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah.
And Shonda and Jeff, if I may just add one other thing real quick to interject here. While CMMC is definitely a hot button topic, do pay attention to the solicitations and the contracts that have the existing cybersecurity regulations already in them. And that's DFARS 252, 204-7012. And a few other variations of that. So do pay attention because there are existing regulations.
Right.
You want to make sure you're compliant to those. And then CMMC is just kind of taking it to the next level in the future.
Yeah, icing on the cake.
All right. So
very good point, Joey.
Yeah.
And our webinar that we're going to be, not webinar, but our event, hybrid event we're going to be having on May 11th is one. Because honestly, get connected on Blue Cyber if you're wanting to do business with the Air Force and you're concerned about cybersecurity. Go ahead, Shonda.
Yes. No, and thank you, Joey, for interjecting that. Yeah, great information. Always letting small businesses know to read their contract. Definitely important. Okay, our next question. And I believe Barbara Mason, the slide Jeff had with the points of contact for the different centers, how can they connect with the decision makers at Wright Patterson? Oh, this Wright Patterson for the e-market. And I guess that was the slide that you had up with the emails for the different.
Yeah, I mean, that would be one. Okay, so basically on that one, when it comes to, I think Barbara's question was about First Look and
oh, that's correct. Okay.
Right. And on that one, and depending, and it was medical supplies, I think.
That was another question. Another
was a different one. Okay, yeah. So basically, we would need to know, and I think she had said that they were registered on the First Look platforms. They were there and available. It then becomes, that your product is showing up in the list when they do the search or when they're buying it. Again, going back to one of my earlier comments is finding out who's buying what you're selling, and your Apex Accelerator can help you do that. Because yes, you may be on First Look, but you're wondering why I'm not getting any pings from Wright Pat. Well, they not being bought at Wright Pat, and so I'm not, but it could be. I mean, but and we can look into that. I'm just saying, you do have to find out who's buying what you're selling.
Okay, and if you didn't have you're specific, if that didn't have answer, you can continue to put in the chat. And I'm
Yeah.
going to go through this because we do
Or
have.
email our office.
Okay. The next one, this is a great question. Kelly Beverly. If a company is deemed procurement ready by the VA, the Veterans Administration, from their, I don't know what the PRSA is.
Is that their certification program?
I'm not familiar with, I don't know if that's procurement ready. I don't know what SA is, but if they're deemed procurement ready by the VA, does that matter to the other military agencies?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it procurement ready. I would need to know what that means. Can you give us some more detail on that?
Yes, and it's gonna determine on what you're probably trying to purchase. Procurement ready just means basically they've registered in SAM. They may have their capabilities, just different things like that. But it depends on what you're looking to do and what the contract is like. So even though you could be procurement ready in general, in that you've registered in SAM, you've done all the basic things. It depends on what the requirement, what the project is, what the contract is, if you're ready to do business with other agencies in general, not just Wright Pat, I would say.
It really depends on the solicitation. If you're all in SAM and registered and ready to go, and you've got all that together, and you're, then you're good to, but then you have to look at solicitations from other federal agencies and say, okay, can I meet that requirement?
Correct. And I would say, Kelly, you would want to, in anyone, even though that could be correct for VA. And as Jeff was saying, it could be just specifically for that specific solicitation. And, if you're looking at Wright Pat, and if it was something similar, you may not be, because there could be some additional requirements that you may need to do and you may not have. So as Jeff said, you want to look at the solicitation.
And contact me, contact the office if you have any questions.
Okay, this is a long one. Lindsay, we are WOSB that makes decals, wall graphics, wall wraps, etc., and cannot compete price-wise with our male-owned larger companies that produce in our sector. If we were to win some of these projects, we would likely be able to invest in equipment or people to get to a point where we might be able to get a little bit closer, I guess, to their price. My question is, how are we able to bridge that gap between what we can price and how cheap the winners of the contracts are? Are there any programs in place to help us be more competitive, or support systems that are in place?
Okay. This is what I would recommend on this type of question. I think it applies to anybody that's probably trying to break into a market that's dominated. Doesn't matter who is dominated, right? But dominated. Okay. Is number one, that basic thing I talked about earlier. Find out who's buying what you're selling. Okay. Because I don't know, let's say Wright Pat, I don't know if we're buying what you're selling when it comes to wraps and stickers and things. Then secondly, and if they are, I don't know, I would also, secondly, then thinking about First Look. Okay. And I'm assuming of First Look. If you don't, contact the office or, do some simple Googling. Get connected on the platforms that First Look is, being offered on, that folks are using to make First Look determinations. Meaning First Look is when people are out there buying, and if they're buying things that are supplies, services, whatever, that local, and it gives them a search of local small businesses first, right? That so that they can, help support the local communities in which installations reside. Okay. And stickers and things like this may be one of those things. And so that's another thing. Okay. Now, yes, then it gets to price, right? And you're saying, you know what, I just can't offer the same price point some of my competitors because they have, I'm doing things more. Okay, that's a tough one, right? Because there is always that price element in there. And, basically we are expending taxpayer funds, and we're all taxpayers. And so one of our main imperatives, right, when we're within the federal government, I'm going to take it, and people, just so it's taken very seriously, in the sense of, being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And it comes to, how much are we paying? You don't want to be the advertisement for the $500 hammer, right? And so that becomes an issue. Now, when it comes to market research, when it becomes, even outside of this thing like First Look, we have to do market research. And when they do identify small business, in particular, socioeconomic categories, we can do a set aside. And it may be competitive for if there's numerous women owned. Let's take women owned as an example. If there's more than 2 or more women owned in the being revealed in the market sector, the market research that can perform the work, then we may do a set aside for women owned for this particular item or service. In some instances, if you're the only woman owned, for instance, we may be able to do, if you can do the entire effort, the CEO may be able to consider a sole source award to you. Again, price does play a factor in that. I mean, I've dealt with this before. I think it takes it takes some effort on your part to market, to distinguish yourself from your competitors, and get out there, as to, again, what is the price differential? And also, are you producing in the US and your competitors are producing elsewhere? That's another consideration that you want to make sure is known, and that you're, I don't know, I'm just based on my other experience with similar situations, not in marketing materials or wraps and things, but in other sectors where small businesses may have a very unique niche remaining in the US, that they produce something in the US that's no longer produced, and they're the only one, but it's cost more because it's produced here, and it may use better materials than that they're used in imported goods. So a lot going on there, but I'd say number one, find out who's buying what you're selling. Get connected on First Look. That's Googling. And I'm sure your Apex Accelerator can help you with that. And then, start marketing and distinguish yourself from your competitors in things like, it's produced in the US, or the type of materials that are being used. That, again, that's very high level. If you want to talk more, you can contact the office, but it's a difficult one. You're not the only one facing it, but there is opportunities potentially to get a set aside. But again, that means someone is out there actually looking at buying what you're selling from kind of like an acquisition perspective. And so that's why it's important to know who buys what you're selling. Okay, I'm seeing something from Barbara here about NDVS and encourages you to contact the local bases. And so, and then that would be, again, finding out, and that's, contacting my office. I would also contact, if you're thinking about Wright, Pat, is LCMC over there to Luke Schultz, because the PZI, what we call the PZI organization that buys for the base, is within AFLCMC. And, they may be able to, assist there. Again, and the other question to ask is the GPC. Who are the GPC holders? Or if you understand what that means government purchase card.
Thank you, Jeff. And Lindsay had put, and I don't know if Joey, if this was the link, could we get a link or website for the First Look? We weren't aware of that. And is that the link that you posted that ndvsb.com/federal.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that link, it'll provide an overview of program and also the NDVSB APHIS marketplace, and there's some videos. So that's a decent starting point.
Okay, great. And Stephen, if you didn't see the link for Apex Accelerator, Joey, if you can put that link up again so that Stephen can find his local Apex Accelerator counselor. And Justine Blank, we completed a P1 and P2 AFWERX STTR, and we're told we achieved a sole source as a woman-owned status because of this award. Can you explain how this benefits or changes how we do business or bid on contracts?
Okay, so I think the question is, they received a SIBR award. Is that what it is?
STTR.
STTR.
Competed.
So you're with an educational institution, and you're a woman-owned. Yes, STTR. Okay. Are you registered? Have you gone through the SBA process to be a certified WSB? Justine, can you answer that? Okay, so when it comes to the socioeconomic categories, right? So,
Yes,
yeah,
they are WOSB.
yeah. So, okay, so now, well, number one, you've received the sitter, the award, right? The sitter award, right? And of course, is that your first Air Force or DoD award? And which is,
Yes, it is their
oh,
first
that's
award.
great. Okay, so fantastic. Okay. So was it a phase 1 or a phase 2? Was that in the question?
They said they completed a P1 and P2, both.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so you got both. Okay, so then you're going to complete those. Of course, you have other opportunities to submit for other, SIBR announcements, right? SIBR sitter announcements, as well as then going on to phase 3. Good. Okay, so basically okay, so now you're asking, what does the woman own do for me? I think is, how do you get a P3?
How do they get to P3?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not the only one that asked that question. We had an event, oh gosh, I want to say back in, was that in March? We had a recent event called Navigating the Valley of Death, transitioning to phase 3. And that was with Wright Brothers Institute. That's why I think it's important, if you're going to operate here, get connected on Wright Brothers Institute. But basically phase 3s are that's a challenge, right? We don't call it the Valley of Death for just, I hate calling it that, but that's kind of lend in the industry term for it, right? Of that tech transition from phase 2 to phase 3, because just the numbers are not there. And so what's important with that is, again, finding out who is the user. Okay, number one, you've got a couple things to do marketing wise, I think, and identifying who the user is ultimately of your phase 3 product. You went to phase 3, okay, and you want to market to them. So let's say if something you're developing would be beneficial or be used by operators in the software and the special operation forces world, then you want to get connected to that world and start showing them and marketing to them on what, and I say marketing, but really showing them what your product is and what it does, what it's going to do, what you're developing. And so that you get some pull on that side. And I'm assuming you've got some a customer. I don't know, but it may be an AFRL customer if you've got a P2, but or P1, but basically a phase 1 or phase 2. But who is that ultimate customer, right? That's going to be using this. You want to make sure you're getting that pull, right? The market demand signal, and they start thinking about, well, gosh, I could, yes. Okay, well, you're well on your way. And so, but lots of customers at Robbins, I don't know who that would be, but so basically you need to make sure you're, that they know what you're doing. So that they're thinking, gosh, I want to make sure that I can buy that, right? When it's ready, it's prototyped and ready to go, I want to buy it. Then if it's within one of our platforms, then you want to also get connected to our PEO programs, our program executive officer programs, the ones I mentioned before. Remember about the portfolios within AFL-CIMC of like bomber, fighter, advanced aircraft, mobility, ISR soft. These are different portfolios with program executive officers. And at our event back in March at WBI, we had, I think, 4 of the innovation leads for the PEOs. And so if you're thinking, gosh, this would fit into, let's say, the F-15 platform, and then I would want to be connecting with the innovation lead for advanced aircraft and talking to them about how this could ultimately transition and support the mission. So, and that's on the acquisition side. So you have the acquisition side and the user side, and you need to direct marketing on terms here of marketing to both of them, so they know what you're doing and how you could benefit the mission. You have to envision, oh, well, see, that should be it. You're right. You should be connected to the supply chain, and you should be contacting Ronnie Hobbs at AFSC, our small business director there. But anyway, basically, let's say on that solution, number one, also have a concept, right? What are we currently doing? Because we're doing stuff in that already. But maybe it's totally inefficient and not up to date, right? And you need to know that. You also then envision, how we're ultimately going to use and leverage your technology across the supply chain. I would think that's very relevant to them at this point, given, what we're, right. Okay. So basically what you're doing is, probably, totally essential to what, they're envisioning, and you'd also, my thing is, whenever you talk to customers, and I'm talking to everybody online now, no matter what you're selling, envision how we're going to use it. Just don't make cold calls. And this is true commercially and even in DoD Air Force, here at Wright Pat, or any installation. And just saying, okay, I do this. Do you buy it? Okay, envision, do some Googling. If this person, I just forgot, is it Justine that I'm talking to on these questions? It sounds like, given she's had a phase 2 in their program, I would assume that some of the mission of the sustainment center and the supply chain group. But if you don't, then no, you don't have to be residents of Ohio to participate in SBIR, etc. That's another question coming from Milani. But I'm saying you need to do some simple Googling. It's all out there on Air Force Sustainment Center, on the Air Force supply chain. Read about what the mission is, how you envision fitting in and supporting, and how your product is going to help us execute our mission and make it like successful and address known and future threats. Okay. Now, you don't have to address all that, but I'm just saying, envision how we're going to use it. Do some basic research. Googling is your friend here to find out what the mission is, and think about how you'd fit and support that mission. That's essential. It's going to make your, but just cold calling and saying, I do this, I'm not surprised when it doesn't go far, because you do have some work to do on your end, because it is, like I told you at the beginning of this, I'm just being blunt with all of you. I'm saying it the nicest way possible, is, it's really important. It's going to take more than one knock.
Right.
And it's going to take you to be an informed and seller. Be informed of our mission. It's super important when you're dealing with DoD. When you're dealing with the military, we're not the world's greatest Air Force and military on earth for no reason. And that is because they're very disciplined, our organization. And basically it's about the mission. So understand our mission when you talk to us.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Hopefully
Jeff.
that
And what I
wasn't
think,
too rough.
no,
Just
but
being
what
honest.
I'm going to ask as we are wrapping up these last couple of questions, if you can put up on the
Mhm.
screens, because it may take a week before they get these,
Mhm.
the point of contact, and people
Try
can
it
take
again.
a screenshot of the points of contact for your office.
Mhm.
And I'll have them do a screenshot, take a picture with your phone, and then also the points of contact of the different directors.
Oh, it's all on one chart. Let me,
But there was one chart you had with your office
Yeah.
and your team, that contact information, that's at the beginning, and then one with the directors.
right.
I think
And,
that was
but Shonda, I have one chart at the end. It's,
okay, got
it's
it.
all on there.
Got
But
it.
I'm gonna have to do that again where I go get it to the to
And Shonda, if I may, while Jeff is getting this set up, the one question I saw come in is referring to Ohio Apex Accelerators.
Mhm.
So to take advantage of our services here in Ohio, yes, primarily you want to be an Ohio business. However, there's Apex Accelerators, there's 96 centers. We cover the entire country, as well as the outlying territories of Puerto Rico, Guam, and Virgin Islands. So wherever you are, there's going to be an Apex Accelerator near you. So I'll put our national website in the chat. We focus on helping U.S. businesses, and again, our service areas are generally broken down by state or sub centers within that area as well. But hopefully that answers Lonnie's question.
oh, okay.
Okay,
Do you
great.
see the chart? Do you see the chart?
Yeah.
For some
Yes.
reason I can't get it to, oh, there, just a minute. I'm getting there. There you go.
Yep.
Can you get
Perfect.
it? Has
Yeah.
everything on there?
So I just encourage everybody to take a screenshot, take a picture with your phone, so you have that. And last couple questions. So you finished up with Justine. Lonnie, that was for Apex Accelerators. All right, Justine again. I do have that match research available, looking for contacts. We presented, Justine, not quite sure with this, what you're asking. I do have that match research available. It's looking for contacts. We presented on 3/29 at Wright Patterson Air Force Base Technology Day trade show. We will continue to keep diligent. I don't know if that was a question or if you needed something specific, but if you needed, please type in the chat really quick. Jeff,
Yeah.
Jeff's office is the AFMC small business to the left at
Yeah,
headquarters.
Yeah, mine is the HQ AFMC/SB in the box there.
Yeah, to the right, all by itself.
Uh-huh. That's my
And if that is it, and we didn't know if we were going to have enough time, we're at 11:57, Jeff.
Okay, good.
Yes. So if you have additional questions, quickly type it in. And while we're waiting, thank you so much, Jeff. As I mentioned, lots of great information. I really love when the small businesses are engaging and they can ask specific questions as it relates to their products or their services or their industry. We had a lot of great questions today.
Yeah,
So
right on. And this was like a really great example of how you really working with all of the help. They're out there to help you, like the Apex Accelerators, the SBA, and us.
right.
To really come up with your business strategy on how you're going to market and sell to, in what we're talking about today is AFMC and Wright Pat and our command in general, but to any federal agency.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, if this is your first time learning about the matchmaker and you want to get engaged and find out, and you want to meet with somebody, a representative from Wright, Pat, and other federal, state, and local agencies, again, the matchmaker, Ohio Business Matchmaker, will be on May 3rd and May 4th in Dayton, Ohio, at the Wright State University Nutter Center. May 3rd is going to be a half day of training, and then also a reception in the evening. So you can go to the Ohio Business Matchmaker website to get more information about the agenda. And then actually on May 4th is the full day. We'll open up with opening remarks from different ones. And then we will have a full day of matchmaking, where when you register to participate in the matchmaker, you will register with your NAICS codes, North American Industry Classification Codes. At the federal level, those identify what products or services you have to offer, what industry you're in. Also, the agencies, you will be registering with the NAICS codes of the products and services that you provide through your small businesses, as far as your competencies, what you're able to do. The agencies will register with their NAICS codes as far as what they're looking for, what they're looking to purchase. And then shortly before the matchmaker, I think like a week or so, we have someone that will actually do a match. So they will send a list of the agencies that are looking for your specific NAICS codes. And so I think we do have scheduled sessions with those agencies that there are match. And then you can also sign up for unscheduled sessions. Again, once you register, you'll get more information, but that gets closer to the day of the event. If you want to get more information about the matchmaker, what it's about, one of the very first webinars that we did to kick off this series, the end of March, was making the most of the matchmaker. So you can go back, it's posted on the matchmaker website in the OU Apex Accelerator, as well as all of the webinars we've been doing since the end of March. We've been doing them every week with the exception of last week. So you can go back and access those. And then Agatha Corbin, I think I know her, I actually went to school with her. This was awesome. Thank you, Wright Patterson Air Force Base and SBA. Agatha B. Corbin, I believe that. I think so. Again, a copy of the slides. Yes, Joey posted those again. You can go to the Ohio Business Matchmaker website. If you aren't registered, please register. I believe early bird registration may still be good. You want to do that. We are having a webinar today, later on today. I have to look to see. We do webinars twice every Wednesday. So one in the morning from 10 to 12, and then one in the afternoon from 1 to 3. This afternoon, we'll have a webinar doing business with the U.S. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and the U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE. That's from 1 to 3. And with that said, I think that's it. We hope to see you at the Ohio Business Matchmaker May 3rd and 4th. Thank you so much, Jeff. Great. Always love you presenting. And we'd love to see you there. Hopefully you can participate in more webinars, and have a great day.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's going to be wonderful weather today. So thank you again,
good.
Jeff. Thank you again, Joey.
Thank you, Joey. Over and out.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.